We're going to go on to House Bill 200 by Representative McMakin. Ms. Smith, would you please go ahead and read in the bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 200 by Representative McMakin provides for membership of the Executive Committee of a recognized political party in East Baton Rouge Parish.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Representative McMakin, on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members. This bill today will amend revised statute 18444. This statute is the one that creates the parish executive committees in the state of Louisiana. It also establishes and provides for the election and term of parish executive committee members, meetings of the parish executive committee members, proxy voting, composition, and removal. And it also provides for specific parishes of Orleans Parish, Jefferson Parish, Lafayette Parish, and Caddo Parish. My bill is specifically for just East Baton Rouge Parish. Mr. Chairman, I do have an amendment set to take up to put it in a proper posture.
All right. Now would be a good time for that. Ms. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Amendment Set 1491. It's available online and has been passed out. This amendment set limits the applicability of the bill to the Republican Party PEC in East Baton Rouge Parish only. It provides, as it relates to membership of members of the legislative delegation, it's only the legislators registered in East Baton Rouge Parish who are members of the Republican Party. It adds members of the Metropolitan Council and makes technical revisions to account for the fact that ex officio members will no longer have the ability to select designees.
All right. Representative McMakin is offering up Amendment Set 1491. Is there any questions on it? Any objection to the adoption of Amendment Set 1491? Seeing no objection, Amendment Set 1491 is adopted. Back on the bill, Representative McMakin.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members. So what that amendment said did was talking to fellow colleagues and people. So it specifically makes it more clear. Thank you, Ms. Smith, for working with me on this one. We wanted to make it just for Republicans, only in the East Baton Rouge Parish, and also talking to Metro Council members. I believe we will have some green cards later that I was very excited to hear they wanted to be a part of this as well. So that's exciting to hear that they wanted to come on board as well and be a part of the party and part of the parish executive committee here in East Baton Rouge Parish. Open it up for any questions.
All right. We do have a couple of questions. Representative Marcel.
Thank you. Let me start out by thanking you for taking the Democrats out of your bill, because I'm not sure what you're trying to accomplish, but the Democratic Party, I serve on both the DSCC and the DPEC, and we didn't want any part of it. So thank you, because I was going to file an amendment to take us out. But secondly, do you think that this measure is important to change the composition, and tell me why?
Yeah, so what came about of this was a pretty unique situation. District 68 that I represent, there's 9 statewide elected officials in the state of Louisiana, 9 all Republicans. 3 of them live in my district in East Baton Rouge Parish. I was like, that's pretty cool. I got the most, what a neat thing. The other one lives about a mile outside my district, but also in East Baton Rouge Parish. So having that opportunity in this moment of time right now to get involved and to bring those people together, you've talked about me talk about other bills where I always talk about bringing more people to the table, get more people involved in the process, and that's what the intent of this is for. And so having those elected people now represent the party, be a part of this is the intent and what we're trying to do, or what I'm trying to do.
But help me to understand, they are all elected, correct?
Yes.
And so your process would do what? The voters have spoken of whom they want to elect to represent them in the Republican Party and any other party, correct?
So the members of the PEC now are elected, and the members that we are adding on to the PEC are also elected. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you want to add them on to do what? What you're going to accomplish by adding them?
Like I just talked about, party promotion, all the ideals of the party and the PEC and the LOGOP, everything about it that's the idea.
Okay, so okay. All right. So, question. If you think this is a wonderful idea, why leave the other 63 parishes out?
Well, so in the law already, you have Orleans, Lafayette, Caddo, Jefferson already in there, but I live in East Baton Rouge Parish, and the thought was this: the capital region. As you know, chair of the capital region delegation, we're trying to do more and more to promote our capital region. East Baton Rouge Parish, the capital, the seat of our government, sits in this parish. Those state government officials and they work downtown in the buildings downtown here and everything about. So I didn't think it was the same if you had someone that lived. I'll be honest, I don't know where like John Fleming lives. I don't think he lives here, right? But like he works here. So if he lived here and he worked here and he represents our state here in our capital region, that was the intent behind it. So that's where it comes from.
Okay, do you believe that this is constitutional?
Yes,
because
ma'am.
that is the Republican Party is not run by us. So you believe that we should now start telling private organizations how to elect their people?
So we're not changing anything on elections. Not changing anything
Not
about
on election,
that.
but you're changing the board.
So 18444 right now, our law establishes how the people are on the RPECs or on the DPECs. It's in law. So right now as lawmakers.
But you want to change that.
I'm not changing anything on the elected people.
You're
What
not.
I'm doing is appointing people to an RPEC. So nothing on the elections is changing, and we currently do that.
I'm gonna say this, and I'll be finished.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You may
your
not
time
be
is up.
changing the way they get elected, but you're changing the board as it currently sits and stands. So you are changing the RPEC. But again, you took the DPEC out. I think it's unconstitutional. I think that's what it would be ruled. But you're the lawyer, I'm not. So, I mean.
Thank you, Representative Marcel. Representative Billings, I believe you're next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative McMakin, are you currently a member of the RPEC?
No, ma'am.
So have you ever been a member of a political organization like State Central Committee or an RPEC?
No, ma'am.
So you don't really have an idea of what goes on the local level there, then, do you?
I would say not being a member, I don't have an idea from a membership standpoint, but being involved in politics now, I try to be involved and try to look into things is my involvement.
So how many EBR legislators will be added to the committee today, those ones elected today?
Legislators, or can I say like the whole list? I believe it's 9.
So 9 additional members. How many are there now, currently?
17.
All right. Can you tell us who all those elected members would be?
Yeah, let's see. Attorney General Liz, Secretary of State Nancy Landry, Insurance Commissioner Tim Temple, U.S. Senator Bill Cassidy, myself, Paula Davis, Barbara Freiberg, Lauren Ventrella, and Emily Schindever. I think that's my 9. Then with the amendment, adding the Metro Council members, I have not had that list on me, I'm sorry.
Have you talked to them and asked them how they feel about this additional commitment, this committee commitment? Do they want to be on this?
Which ones?
The new additional members that you're talking about.
I've talked to some.
They all want to be on this committee.
I've not talked to everybody, no ma'am.
All right. So have you consulted with the EBR committee members and asked them their position on having 9 additional members on their committee?
I've talked to some, not all, and I believe they also took a vote at a meeting and said they did not want it.
Okay, so their feedback is, we don't want any part of this.
I believe they took a vote at a meeting that was called at some time and voted on that.
At some point.
At some point, yes.
So how does this align with the principles of local governance? So if you were to parachute in statewide officials, don't you think that perhaps the committee itself might be cowed a little bit by the new representation? They're local issues that are important to them because they are, after all, elected by their constituents for their locality. Suddenly having statewide officials have an opinion on what they want to do. Do you think that might be a problem?
You know, I don't see it that way. That's why I brought the bill. I think it's more of an excitement opportunity we have, so I just don't see it that way. No, ma'am.
Well, I have a question about that too. These statewide officials all live right here in the same district and work here in downtown Baton Rouge. Don't they already have the opportunity to get together and talk?
If there was a mechanism to do that and be involved, but right now there is no involvement or no invitation or opportunity to do that.
These are open meetings. They're welcome to attend any EBR meeting, I'm sure.
Rep Billings, according to the bylaws, every month they're supposed to have meetings and should be open and where they are and have minutes posted. If you can find those, I'd love to see them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Billings. Representative Bayham, you're next.
Thank you, Acting Chair Thomas. Representative McMakin, St. Bernard Parish, RPEC, has 5 members that are at large, 2 that are divided by our council, east and west, and then 1 for each council. Not every parish has that same setup, correct?
You're right. Yes, sir. Some are different.
Now, let me ask this question. One thing, and I've served on the Republican State Committee since 1996. I'm one of the longest tenured members. I've been on the St. Bernard RPEC since 1996. Before I was an elected official, I was on there. Do you believe if Sid Edwards ran for the RPEC, do you think he'd win his seat?
I think so.
So if someone who is a prominent official were to run for a seat, then an activist that may live in that same district, do you think they would have a chance against the mayor-president?
Yeah, I don't think they do. And I think that's one of the benefits of this is that if the elected people are appointed to the RPEC, you don't take up a spot on that RPEC by an elected official. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it actually gets more people involved and more people at the table.
Do you believe that if every elected official ran for their party committee, you would have party committees exclusively of elected officials with no activists?
You know, I don't want to hypothetical, but it seems more likely than not that when party people run, that they win.
So this would actually basically give activists an opportunity to run where they would be blocked out by someone who's more prominent. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Representative Newell.
Thank you, Rep. Thomas. Thank you, Rep. McMakin. Yes, continue looking at the screen behind the pole. I'm glad this. I just wanted to get some. I'm just trying to follow the understanding as to what you're doing because I'm listening to my colleagues' questions and concerns. It seems like how many members you say are on the RPEC right now? There's
17.
just 17?
Yes, ma'am.
So with this bill, if this bill passes, we're looking at, what's that, 29, 34 plus 35, 36. And we're adding all of the statewide elected officials?
No, ma'am. Just the ones that live in the parish.
So that would be just the AG?
The Secretary of State, the Attorney General, the Insurance Commissioner, and the U.S. Senator.
Okay, so that's 34. You just mentioned for 5 people, 30, so we've added about 40-some people on the board. So we're expanding the 40-plus from a board that's currently 17.
No, ma'am. I'm not sure where you're getting that math from. No, ma'am.
Because I'm looking at this, it said it shall be as follows. 1 elected member of each 12 councilmanic districts, 5 members elected at large from the parish, each member of the legislative delegation. I thought you said 17 for that number. And then statewide, each statewide elected official, the member of the Public Service Commission, and the member of the State Bessie Board. I thought you would say it's 17 for each member of the legislative delegation.
I think you doubled up a 17 there is what happened.
Okay. All right. So
And the
we
Bessie, and there is no, as far as I know, there's no Bessie member that lives here. There's no Public Service Commissioner that lives here. That's only if they do.
If it happens.
If it happens, yes, ma'am.
So it could, the numbers can fluctuate. And again, tell me why y'all want to do this, because I see y'all have some supporters on the front row.
I don't think they're
What's this going to help y'all
supporters.
accomplish? Because I saw your face and your button on this piece of paper, so I thought you was in support. Okay, I was just, what are you trying to do? What would you like to do with this? What we
I think that was just what I was talking to Representative Marcel about, the opportunity to get everybody together, promote the party, get out the vote, everything we're trying to do from a party, from an RPEC standpoint, and use the resources of those individuals right now while we have that opportunity.
So you would be now on this RPEC to ensure that they do this with your legislation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just wanted to know what you were doing. I'm glad you didn't touch Orleans Parish. So y'all do what y'all like. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Noel. Representative McMakin, as you know, I do sit on the RPEC for Jefferson Parish.
Madam Acting Chair, could you take me off the hot mic? That's dangerous.
Boy, is it. Okay, you're off. Thank you. Do you know which parish is the most highly populated in the state of Louisiana?
East Baton Rouge Parish.
Do you know what's second?
Jefferson Parish.
Okay, so Jefferson, do you know how many members of RPEC there are in Jefferson Parish?
I believe you'll have 33-ish, 35?
35.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And you right now in East Baton Rouge Parish, the most highly populated in the state of Louisiana, you have
17.
half-ish
Yes, ma'am.
of what Jefferson Parish has. So I think where you're going with this, and please correct me if I'm reading you incorrectly, is to have more representation of Republicans in your parish. Am I reading that correctly?
Ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have Representative Bayham for another bite at the apple.
One more bite at the apple.
All right, you get another 3 minutes.
Well, I won't need that much time. Representative McMakin, just to underscore exactly, how things are different, and some committees are much larger than others. Do you know how many members are on the DPEC and RPEC in Orleans per council district?
I believe that's already in statute, and it's 14 members per council manic district. Is that right?
14.
Okay.
And I'm looking at one race here. Do you know how many candidates ran for the DPEC in District A in Orleans one year?
Maybe Rep. Newell could help me. No, sir, I don't.
I cannot.
At least 30, judging by all of I could count, but, and almost all of the people who got elected were elected officials.
Mm-hmm.
So, I believe we do need to have a voice for our activists in our party. I started off as an activist before I was an elected official. But if you're an elected official, you will have an advantage. There's no doubt about that. And so I see that, your legislation would provide would prevent elected officials from shoving activists out. Is that a reasonable interpretation?
Yes, sir, Rep. Bayham, and I'd say too, in RS 18444 that we're trying to amend today, the election and terms of these PECs are set forth in legislation. So we set that as legislators. We set forth when that is, and I don't know the research on it, but we specifically say you're elected every 4 years at the same time as the presidential preference primary. Parties don't set that. We set that as legislators. And that is usually right after we have our legislative and statewide elected officials are elected. So you have these officials that would run in the fall, spend all that money, get their name out there. Then just a few months later, they go and they're running for these positions. And I think that's exactly to your point of where it locks out and hurts the activists that are trying to get involved, like yourself, like you started.
Let me ask this question. Going back to the DPEC District A race in Orleans, there are 44 candidates. Do you know who came in first place?
No, sir.
Lady by the name of Amy Adado Freeman.
I've heard of her.
Yeah. So, obviously, if elected officials decided to crowd out the activists, it could easily be done. I think your bill provides opportunities for activists to not get blocked out by elected officials.
Thank you.
Representative Billings for another bite at the apple. 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Sitting Chair.
Wait.
Who?
Okay, gotcha.
Hello. Thank you very much, Madam Sitting chair.
Adam sitting there.
Sitting chair.
Okay.
So I wanted to leave you with some potential outcomes of this legislation. So if the EBR Republican Executive Committee collectively opposes the state legislators' compulsion to add state, Senate, and statewides, it could lead to various reactions, including resistance, internal division, potential consequences at the both local and state levels. I can imagine they might have feelings of frustration and resentment, loss of autonomy, feelings of imposition. It could sow division among the members, may worry about the inclusion of state legislators within the committee, particularly the noticeable differences in priorities and strategies, approaches to local issues, a fear that they may have to compromise on things they don't want to. A perceived power shift. Local committee members may feel that the incoming state legislators will hold a disproportionate influence over the committee decisions and their discussions. Pressure to align with state agendas, collective resistance may form, and a fear of legislative repercussions, including withholding funding, resources, and local initiatives. I do not approve. I'm going to vote no on this aspect. I came also from the local activist level. I've been vice chair of the LAGOP, the chair of my RPEC, and currently sitting chair of my RPEC. I'm very well versed in what goes on within these committees. And even though the legislature might not like what's going on, it is a local activism, and they do produce very good ideas for their local communities, as well as supporting the local candidates. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Billings. Representative Boyd.
I'm not going to take my whole 3 minutes, but I just wanted to play devil's advocate to the activist portion. You don't need to be elected to be an activist. Activists are already very much involved in their community. Before I got elected to the House, I ran third behind 2 other elected officials out at 14. So if you are in that community, my suggestion is work, regardless of where you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Boyd. Okay, we now go to cards. I have 2 cards in support. Gordon Trey Vargas, okay, representing himself. He is present and would like to speak or provide information. You have 2 things checked.
Hello, everyone. My name's Gordon Trey Vargas, and I'd just like to say that I am in support of Representative McMakin's measure, HB 200. I feel that it would give us a little bit more consistency. I'm a resident of East Baton Rouge Parish, and I just feel that sometimes the political executive committees sometimes maybe don't have the same posture as the Republican Party. So to be able to use the name Republican Executive Committee is sometimes a little misleading for some of those who don't really understand that sometimes those groups don't really represent the party that it says it does. So I think that creates some confusion, and that confusion creates some inconsistency, and that as a result alienates people from the organization, and it dilutes the power of the organization, and as a result things like voter turnout are less. So with that, I just want to say I support this measure, and I understand everybody's point today. If I could elaborate or answer any questions, I would be more than happy to do so.
You do have a question, Representative Boyd, for a question?
So you have people who put their names down to run for the RPAC and that are elected by other Republicans, but you're saying they are not aware of what goes on with the party?
what I'm saying is that what you could arbitrarily have, I'm not saying that this does happen, but a group of people could basically say, okay, I'm going to elect you, you elect yourself, you pay to be on the board, we're going to create a newspaper that we can monetize with the internet and create our own network of good old boys and actually make themselves obsolete from the true party it's got a name of. It says Republican Party. However, a lot of people don't want to play ball at that ballpark because it's not an equal playing field, and that's what people are opposed to. So I understand everybody's point here, but we also need to understand that as long as we allow these cliques to click in Baton Rouge, we're going to keep on clicking.
The clicks can be stopped by voting. Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, let her speak.
These people put their names on a list, they pay their money to run, and Republicans or Democrats elect them to be there. There's no clicking there. That's the people have voted for them to be there. So if you don't like who's on the ballot, you run somebody who you think could do it, but not appointing them. Those people are elected to those seats by the people.
Okay, so it's either a pond or a fishbowl. We can control the fishbowl
it's
much better
neither.
than the pond. So we can have a peck and create our own network, and basically making it very tough for new people to come in. If we regulate the amount of people that control it, then we regulate the people who are in it.
You can't regulate what someone's going to vote for. I'm not going to, excuse me, sir.
Okay.
People vote for those people to be there. They're elected to be there. That means that I have read up on who you are and what you stand for and decided I want to support you on the ballot. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Representative Boyd. Representative Shamahorn for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You'll have to look straight ahead to watch me. But the question for you is, they represent the Republican Party, right? Okay.
Who's that?
The PEC.
Sometimes, not all the time.
Okay. I am a Republican.
Okay.
My colleagues are also considered Republicans.
Okay.
Well, not all, okay? There are some Democrats.
Come on, let's keep moving.
In it or two. But my point is, there are different levels of Republicans.
Yes, sir.
Okay? Because I am very, very conservative as a Republican. I do not always get my way or my thoughts across the finish line. But that's what we have to do. And just like Representative Boyd just mentioned, you know, they run just like we run in an election. And in that election, it's up to the people to be able to put them in that seat. I don't know how many open seats y'all have, if they're all full or not, but I know in Vernon Parish, where I'm from, there are open seats all the time. Sabine Parish has open seats. So if you want to really get involved, put your name in the hat. A lot of times there's no opposition. So that way you get involved and you have a say. But everybody can't be alike. And that's why it makes it hard to get some of these bills across in Baton Rouge. It's because nobody represents the same group of people. Okay, we all represent 44,000 people, and there are different areas of the state that, you know, we have different ideals and different beliefs. We don't all come together. So, but in the Baton Rouge area, I'm sure there's open seats that could be filled by an election, and you will never agree wholeheartedly with everyone. Even my constituents, I try to keep a 60% favorable rate, and that is very, very hard because you make one vote and your good friends get mad at you, you know? And you know, they think you are 100% all the time. You have to be 100%, but you can't, not and represent everybody as a whole. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Representative Shamahorn. Representative Thomas for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to put forth that in Jefferson Parish, we have fierce battles to be elected to the PEC. And And I'd just like to say that.
Well, thank you for that. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Representative Thomas. That clears the board. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Also, we have present, not wishing to speak, but in support, Jen Rocca with the East Baton Rouge Metro Council. All right. Also, can provide information, if necessary, that's here in a white card. The Secretary of East Baton Rouge Parish Republican PEC, Mr. Scott Wilfong. All right, on to the red cards. Get comfortable. All right, we're going to start with the chairman of the Louisiana Republican Party, Mr. Derek Babcock. If you please introduce yourself for the record. Welcome to House and Government Affairs.
All right, I'm Derek Babcock, chairman of the Louisiana Republican Party, and my time got severely cut for everything I wanted to say, so I'm cutting on the fly. Please bear with me and listen quickly. I'm here in opposition to HB 62 that seeks to regulate how the East Baton Rouge Republican PEC will seat certain members on its committee with voting rights and quorum eligibility. It's important to recognize that political parties are private organizations with First and 14th Amendment constitutional rights that afford them the freedom to establish their own internal rules, including how they select and seat members. In numerous court cases, such as the Democrat Party versus Wisconsin, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that states cannot force parties to adopt election processes that conflict with their internal rules, even in the name of fairness. And I wanted to expand on that, but my time is short. So they did go on to say government is only allowed to intervene in the case of discriminatory practices, which are addressed in the Voting Rights Act of 1965. So state control over committee elections is not necessary, even in the cases of discrimination, because you have federal law that handles that. The U.S. Supreme Court, again, in U versus San Francisco, this court unanimously struck down several provisions of the California Election Code regulating party governance and member elections as violations of their First Amendment guarantees of free speech and freedom to associate. This case, is it's another prime example. I can't expand too much on it, but it's of the private party's rights to be free from excessive state interference. Right here in Louisiana, you had the Louisiana Republican Party and John Rendino versus Mike Foster, governor at the time, and Fox McKithen, Secretary of State. And this is regarding Act 300 that they passed in 1995 regarding elections for the RSCC. It had to do with basically the districts. And again, the Louisiana Supreme Court ruled, based on First Amendment rights, that Act 300 was unconstitutional. They said it violated the Louisiana Republican Party's right to freedom of association, found in the First and 14th Amendments, and also Article 1, Section 7 and 9 of the Louisiana Constitution. Look, I've been asked about the party, the committees, the RSCCs being in statute, in Louisiana statute, and I'm going to point out to you that it says recognized parties in statute. Statute does not establish these parties. It recognizes them. It basically gives the Secretary of State authority to enforce the structure and put us on the public ballot. So it does not give the state regulatory authority over private parties, Democrat or Republican. I'll close with this, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Government regulation and mandates dictating how private political parties elect, appoint, or seat their committee members violates the First Amendment and political rights of the parties. It risks partisan manipulation, and it undermines diversity and accountability in the political system. Political parties are private associations and have the right to determine their internal governance, including the selection of committee members, how they shape their leadership, and their priorities. Look, I'm here in opposition of HB 52 or 200, and humbly ask for your no vote on this.
I have just a quick question for you, just on something that you mentioned on that I kind of picked up to when reading the bill that I might have an issue with on the quorum side of things.
Yes.
If that was, and I'm just asking this for the record, if the quorum issue was removed from the bill, because I could see how we could, especially with some of the other officials and their other duties, I wouldn't want that to affect the work of the committee. Would that change your objection to it if the quorum issue?
No, it wouldn't change my objection.
I didn't think so, but I just wanted to ask that.
This is basically state government intervening in the operation of a private political party, which has protections from that.
All right, thank you.
And for good reason.
All right, Representative McMakin for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Babcock behind the podium over here. So just for the record, you and I have talked about this bill. My questions today, I think, as you know, are not adversarial, just for the record in the conversation. So in the bylaws of the State Central Committee of the Republican Party, Article 13 is for parish executive committee members. Section 1, in order to qualify and serve as a member of the Republican Parish Executive Committee, an individual must meet the qualifications as set forth in Article 3, Section 1 of these bylaws, which in Section 1 says, to qualify to be elected as a member, a candidate must be a resident and registered Republican voter of the district from which he or she is a candidate for at least 6 months prior to Election Day, and qualify as required by law. What is the law that you are required to use there? Isn't it correct that it is RS 18444? Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And
nope, they're good. These are all going to be a little quick yes/nos.
okay.
Does House Bill
Recognized party is significant.
Does House Bill 200 in the law conflict with your bylaws on membership of the Parish Executive Committee?
I missed what you said.
I know it's hard behind this poll.
Yeah.
Does this bill conflict any way with your bylaws of the State Central Committee? Yes or no?
It does, yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
How does it conflict?
We don't allow for appointment of people. It's election. It's an election that's put on the ballot.
So this bill has nothing to do with election. So how does it conflict any way with the election of your people?
Because you're adding to the board, you're giving decision-making authority, voting rights, and quorum eligibility to people who are not elected to serve on this private party.
The private party that's set forth in RS 18444, correct?
The recognized party
No,
in RS4, yes.
That doesn't, well, okay.
And it's in here. I brought
Your
it,
bylaws
just in case you
state
need
as
it, so.
required by law, and that law would be LARS Title 18444. Additionally, your bylaws in Article 13 say, Section 2, the officers of each parish executive committee shall be chairman, vice chairman, secretary, and treasurer, who are elected at the first meeting of the parish executive committee held in accordance with Louisiana Revised Statute 18444, Section C, Part 1. Would you agree that in your bylaws, when it says held in accordance with LARS 18444, C1 means your bylaws and operations are therefore to be followed by the law that we, the legislature, have the sole authority and responsibility for changing? Yes or no?
The parties have the authority to govern themselves.
Okay.
And so we can...
According to your bylaws, in accordance with, your bylaws are following the revised statute, yes or no?
Yeah.
Those are the bylaws that were adopted by the members of the party,
All right.
the private party.
I was going to let him explain it, give him an opportunity to answer if you needed to answer further.
That's fine. I mean, it's the statute recognizes political parties. It doesn't establish them. It recognizes them. And so we as a private party have the authority to govern ourselves. And again, through multiple court cases, which I'll cite, there were numerous attempts for state governments to interfere in the governing of these political parties. In every court decision that struck them down, they referenced the First Amendment right that they have to speech and to assemble.
Okay, thank you. All right, Representative Wright for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Got some mixed thoughts about this whole thing, Chairman Babcock. Appreciate you coming up and talking about this. Just had a couple of questions, certainly not adversarial, but you referenced private a number of times in your conversation. I have not served on the PEC. I think it's about 8 years, maybe. I totally enjoyed it. In fact, Representative Baralt and I, that's how we met a long time ago, 20 years, working as a Republican in St. Tammany. What happens, who pays for that election? Like, who's pay? I know, for example, when I was a councilman in Covington, we would, something would put on the ballot, or we talk about constitutional amendments and things like that. People get upset, like, who's paying for it? It's a significant chunk of change. Would you agree? Like, for a local election, how is that paid for?
It's on the public ballot. Secretary of State runs that, and it is on the public ballot, yes. But
go ahead, Dave.
Again, it's the legislature recognizes these parties. They authorize the Secretary of State to run our elections, but it doesn't have to be that way. We could caucus. The Republican Party could, the Democrat Party could. But we've been given that ability through recognition and statute to be able to use the public system. However, if you allowed state government to interfere with the governing of private party, Republican and Democrat, then you open up Pandora's box to where if they have an issue with something that the party said or some endorsement that was made, then you have the authority of making law. And if you are able to make a law that adversely affects that organization, well then you destroy the party and then you destroy democracy itself. So you can't. That's why we have these First Amendment rights to protect private parties from government interfering in how we govern ourselves. And there's, again, numerous cases, and I brought the Louisiana case as well, if y'all would want to read that. So.
Yeah, look, fair enough. I respect some of the things you're saying there. You know that. I think, though, there's I don't know how to put this. I mean, there's a little bit of, conflict here because we only do it for 2. And I know, look, Republicans and Democrats are the dominant. We give away a free election and the cost there, right? The state does. But yet, there's things here we don't like. We've got different parishes doing different things, right? There's just something wrong with it. It's hard for me to argue with Representative McMakin by representing his people, right, and saying, and there's a basis in law for this. We agreed that. This should be different. This should be. I understand the part about interfering, but at the same time, sometimes that's what it takes. I'll finish. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Wright.
And don't take it adversarially at all.
Do you want to respond? I'll give you an opportunity to respond to that if you need to respond.
No, I mean, look, it's, obviously I'm here in opposition. I don't know. I know, look, Representative McMakin's a friend, and I think he's a great legislator. He's had some good bills. I just disagree with this one. And I understand he represents his constituents, but I don't think his constituents always fully agree with him either.
All right.
Yeah.
This committee doesn't always agree with him. Representative Bayham.
I don't always agree with Representative McMakin. 2020, there was a state central committee election involving Charlie Buckles, who is a former vice chair of the party, and Frankie Brooks of Maurice. Do you know how that election was resolved?
Tell me that again. You said 2020. It was what election? No, Charlie and
Central Committee.
State Central Committee. Okay.
Charlie Buckles versus Frankie Brooks.
You're talking about the local race for his seat back.
Republican State Committee.
Okay.
How was that election resolved?
I don't know in that one. I don't know.
I could tell you.
Please do.
It went to court. Okay. Mr. Buckles went to state court and had Mr. Brooks disqualified. So if the parties are fully independent and private, why was this election decided in state court?
The courts do have some jurisdiction to, things like discrimination or discriminatory practices. And, in that one, I don't know, I can't answer that question for you. But, if this bill were to pass, this is something that, again, similar bills have passed and been brought to court, and they have lost. And again, they've lost based on the First Amendment rights that are afforded to these private parties to be able to speak freely and assemble themselves and govern themselves.
And Chairman Babcock, I don't disagree. Right. Your argument has merit. The arguments of the opponents to Representative McMakin's bill have merit. And I've spoken, and I respect a lot of the people who are opposing this bill, but we're just looking at things from a legal standpoint. And obviously, we've had a Republican State Central Committee election resolved in State District Court. Sure. When you run for RPEC or State Central Committee, you don't qualify at the party headquarters, you qualify at the Clerk of Court's office. You pay a fee. So this is not simply, a private organization. There is a public aspect in this. The RPECs, when they have to file a report with the legislative auditor every year, correct?
Right.
Don't the parties receive a check from the Secretary of State from qualifying fees in many cases, correct?
Yes, if a Republican, if someone wants to run as a Republican in that election, they pay a fee to do so, yes.
Right,
And we get that fee. It's shared.
So there is a public aspect, correct?
There is a public aspect, yes, but that doesn't give the state the right to come in and regulate when we have First Amendment protections against that.
Right. So,
So,
okay. Thank you for answering the
Yeah,
questions.
no
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Bayham. Representative Boyd for a question.
More of a comment. I hate that I'm constantly on this mic because I have no dog in the hunt. However, if you have two people qualifying for a position and one has not met the qualifications for that, I would take them to court, me, as the candidate, knowing that Representative Wright has qualified for this race and is not qualified to be there. I would take this to court. That is why the courts were involved in that. Thank you.
and again, the parties have established their process for electing people using the election system, and there's rules that go along with that. Look, if the RPAC, East Baton Rouge RPAC, wanted to say, hey, we're going to appoint elected officials as members with voting rights on it, they have the right to do that. But the state doesn't have the right to come in and say, you're going to do that. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Babcock.
All right.
All right. Also present wishing to speak in opposition, Darrell Glasper.
How you doing, sir? Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning, sir. Please introduce yourself for the record.
My name is Darrell Glasper, East Baton Rouge Parish, former elected official, former member of the Republican Central Committee, and former minority coordinator for the Republican Party. I just can't wait to get here because you can't make this up. Really, you can't make this up. You have a situation where when I first went to the Republican Party, because I was thrown out of the Democratic Party, and I don't want the Democrats to get mad with me because you here making more sense than some of the Republicans now. And I'm being honest with you. Because they threw me out because of gambling. I was not going to be forced to bring gambling to the inner cities of the state of Louisiana, destroy the inner city. And to this day, I was right. Because my mother and grandmother told me, for no circumstances, vote for it. And so I say that with a passion for people. You all are good people. And you have a lot of important issues that you have to fix in this state. And we are talking about a party that has been 82 to 89% successful. We have all Republicans statewide. When I first went, you didn't have any. Not one statewide. It's a fact. And so now you have all of the Republicans statewide. You have all the Republicans in East Baton Rouge Parish. And we're talking about how effective the party is. What you have is a group of young politicians who don't know how to handle power. That's my opinion. And it's always been like that. When you are successful, and not against any of you all reported Democrat or Republicans, because at the end of the day, we're all in the same boat. We're all face the same problems. But now we have infighting among ourselves when you are successful. You have plenty. Yes, we have elected officials who are statewide elected officials that live in East Baton Rouge Parish, are housed in East Baton Rouge Parish, and go look at the results. We are ranked as the worst city in America to live because of crime. You have a lot of work to do as elected officials. You can't go run a political party that help you with all the gains that you have. So I'm here in opposition to it. And let me say this to you. As a body of individuals with some serious matters, how do you find yourself discussing an issue like this when we have all the more important issues to fight as a group of people? And so when you start talking about workforce and helping the minority communities and housing, now I want to just end by saying this. We as a group of people in Louisiana, I don't care if you black or white, Republican or Democrat. Let me tell you what you have very quickly. You have the president, the House and the Senate. You have Louisiana, the governor, the House and the Senate. And you have East Baton Rouge Parish, the Metropolitan Council. Fix this state. That's what we need to be doing instead of talking about foolishness.
Thank you, sir. All right. Also present, in opposition, wishing to speak, Woody Jenkins, East Baton Rouge Parish Republican Peck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to call your attention to a pass out that.
Go ahead and introduce yourself for the record.
Woody Jenkins, Chairman of the Republican Party in East Baton Rouge Parish. And I think.
And former state representative.
State representative, yes, thank you very much. So I would like to call your attention to a pass-out sheet. I want to tell you that I'm troubled because this legislation messes with a very successful party, and I want to tell you about it. If you look at the first page, the front page, you'll see that in East Baton Rouge Parish we have 288,000 registered voters, only 79,000 Republicans. This is a blue parish. Over and over again, we've been told that. But if you look at the results of what our party has been able to accomplish with a lot of help from a lot of people, you'll see that we have a Republican sheriff, a Republican assessor, a Republican clerk of court, a Republican coroner. We just elected, against all odds, something people said was impossible, a new Republican mayor president. We have a majority of the Metro Council. We have a majority of the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board. We have the mayor of Central, 6 out of 7 council members in Central. We have a majority of the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board. We have all of the Central School Board. We have the mayor of Zachary, and a majority, in fact, all 5 of the 5 council members in Zachary are Republicans. So we've been very successful doing it the way we're doing it. Now I want you to turn over the page, and I want to introduce you to the members of the PEC who would have their votes diluted and basically made much less meaningful. And I want you to look at this group. We're not worried about being taken over by the elected officials and somebody who's governor coming in and running for the PEC and all these scare things that have been raised. I want you to look at our members. Mayor Pro Tem Brandon Knoll, he's the Mayor Pro Tem of the city parish government, so he's the head of the legislative branch in our government, sits on our PEC. He ran and was elected. If you look on the other side, Lon Vicknair, who's the chief of staff to the Mayor President Sid Edwards, he serves on our PEC. He was elected. If you look at Jerry Bruyette, state vice chairman of the Republican Party, he ran and was elected. Cecil Kavanaugh, chairman of the Tea Parties of Louisiana, ran and was elected. Lynn Cox Graham, who has been president of Republican Women of East Baton Rouge Parish, one of the largest and oldest Republican women's groups, she ran and was elected. Jamie Pope, who is governmental affairs for Citizens for Louisiana, she ran and was elected. Scott Wilfong, who's been parliamentarian for many years of the Republican Party. And we go right through this whole list. Christy Hike, representing the National Association of Republican Assemblies. Tommy French, who was president of the Louisiana Baptist Convention. This is a very distinguished group of people. We have 56 years of legislative experience in this group. I really don't think that you should try to bother with our membership, because what's happening here is working, and if you're a Republican, you should be very, very happy with the results.
All right, thank you. I got a quick question, just because you mentioned something, I wrote it down, and you talked about diluting the vote, and you kind of said it at the same time where you were kind of, being positive about the people you helped to elect. So can you maybe comment real quick on diluting the vote with folks that you helped to put in office?
So people have their own lane. Somebody elected to the legislature is elected by all voters to be a legislator. Somebody who's elected governor is elected to be governor. We're elected to represent grassroots Republicans to run the Republican Party in the parish. The legislators weren't elected for that. The governor wasn't elected for that. We weren't elected to the legislature. Stay in your lane. People elected to run the party. Legislators run that. Now, may I say also, and I want to say this to Representative Thomas, that you have a large PAC, but they're all elected. They're all elected from districts. Nobody's appointed to your PAC. Nobody's appointed to any PAC. It's it's great that Dixon has some state elected officials in his district. They weren't elected to be on a PAC.
All right, let's go to the next question. Okay. Representative McMakin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Jenkins, for being here today. You're elected to the RPAC and you're elected as chairman. Under this bill, would that change anything about your election to the RPAC or election as chairman?
Well, I was elected by the members in March of 2024 for a 4-year term. So I don't know if you have, it's a lot of people, not just 9, because now you got Metro Council, there is a Bessie member statewide. I have no idea how many people you have flooding into our PAC, and I guess they may try to take it over. I have no idea what they're going to do.
According to your bylaws, your own bylaws, when would the next election be of chair?
It would be in 4 years.
In 2028. Yeah. Okay, so you would still be elected chair. You're still elected to your position.
I don't know what they might do. They could try to change the bylaws.
You are the editor and owner of Central City News and Community Press, LLC, correct?
That's correct.
In your April 2025 edition on page 5, there's an article titled, Rep. Dixon McMakin Attempts to Take Over Republican Party of East Baton Rouge Parish. Are you the author of this article?
Yes, I am.
In this article, you write this, so I'm quoting now. Republican Parish Chairman Woody Jenkins said, quote, "This bill is undemocratic. It attempts to take away control of the local Republican Party from rank-and-file grassroots Republicans and turn it over to politicians. Rep. McMakin can't just name himself and his hand-picked cronies as officers of the Republican Party." Did you write this statement?
Absolutely,
okay.
Representative.
So when I just asked if this bill...
I explain what I just said?
You answered. No, sir.
You are naming your people, that's your cronies, to be on the PAC. It's people you've handpicked to be on the PAC, and you changed it today. Now you want to have some Metro Council members. It's ever-changing. Why?
So when I just asked you if this bill changes the officers, it does not. Why do you quote yourself differently in that article that we would be changing the officers?
Well, everybody on the PAC is an officer of the party. That's who that is.
Well, there's 4 officers of the PAC.
Everybody on the PAC is an officer of the party, and you are naming officers of the party of your choosing that you're putting in this bill and taking out of you took out the designees, you're adding in the Metro Council, you've got Bessie, you've got PSC, statewide officials. Why are you doing this? You've never explained. You're going to bring more credibility? I think our existing PAC has plenty of credibility right now.
Also, a crony is defined as a close friend or companion.
Yes.
So who exactly are my hand-picked cronies? Since we've established that I don't have any friends.
Buddies, that's who.
Point of order here. He would have to have friends here to be able to have those cronies.
One other thing, 2 other questions for you. The bylaws of the East Baton Rouge PAC do not set the nature and number of members of the PAC, correct?
Finish.
I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and read them again.
Do the bylaws of the East Baton Rouge PAC determine when meetings are held and when notifications are sent out?
They do.
And you just recently had a meeting. Did you submit to those bylaws and do that in order of your bylaws?
Yes.
So there was a 48-hour notice, and everyone was made aware of it, and the minutes were posted online?
Time limit's up. I mean, you can answer that question, but that's
yes, we did comply with all of that.
Thank you.
All right. The board is clear. Thank you, Mr. Jenkins, for your testimony.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have Henry Kinney representing himself. Mr. Kinney?
Yes.
Please introduce yourself for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I am a lawyer for 52 years, and I want to give you my opinion on the unconstitutionality of this legislation. This legislation was unconstitutional going into the meeting this morning. But when Representative Marcel removes the Democratic Party, it becomes a very, 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 very strong a case on the unconstitutionality of this legislation. First off, the idea, and I know we all know, when asked why did we have to do this, Representative McMakin was not exactly resoundingly reflecting the membership of the population that this had to be done. There is a specific provision in Louisiana's Constitution in Article 3, Section 12, that prohibits special legislation. I think it might have been Representative Billings, I don't remember.
Just stay in the microphone if you don't mind.
That discussed a private institution. This has nothing to do with government. You can't tell a private corporation how to elect its board of directors, okay? That's real simple. So this is 100% violative of Article 3, Section 12. Secondly, the constitutionality of a government telling a private entity, a political entity, how to run its executive committee is so unconstitutional. It's something that would take 10 minutes for any lawyer to look at. No government has the right to regulate a Republican parish executive committee. It just doesn't happen. And the concept is that you have the right to govern elections. Okay? And that's what I think Representative McMakin said this. This bill has nothing to do with elections. So if it has nothing to do with elections, maybe this is something that the legislature really shouldn't be involved in. I hate to see what's going to happen. If this legislation were to pass, you're setting up the fact that I would imagine that the local parish executive committee would not allow these people to be seated. You're setting up an inevitability of conflict. And the idea that you would say to let's pick up the Democratic Party.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kinney. Do you have a question? Representative Thomas?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are you a member of the PAC?
No, ma'am.
Okay,
I'm a 52-year lawyer that practiced in New Orleans for 48 years of that. I moved to Baton Rouge 5 years ago. I hold no elected position. I'm just an old lawyer that happens to know something about this area of the law.
So I'd like to remind you that Representative Marcel did not remove the Democrats from this bill. Representative McMakin did with his amendment, which we adopted. So it was Representative McMakin who did that. Also, do you believe that 18:444 is unconstitutional?
Probably, yes, I do. I think any regulation of a political party, and not only that, go down to the bottom where it starts saying, in this parish you have this many people, in this parish you have this many people. Yes, I think it's unconstitutional.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kinney. The board's clear.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody's time and effort.
Yes, sir. All right, also present in opposition wishing to speak, Jeff Wittenbrink. And if I messed up your last name, as you introduce yourself, please correct me.
That's fine. You did fine. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm also just a lawyer. I've been practicing 37 years. Yes, sir. Jeff Wittenbrink.
Okay.
Wittenbrink. 37 years I've been practicing law. I've been practicing more constitutional law in the last 5 years since COVID. I happen to go to these Republican meetings. They happen pretty often here in Baton Rouge, and so I know personally Mr. Jenkins and some of the other members of the RPAC. And I just want to say that the previous witness is absolutely correct, and that this proposed legislation is absolutely unconstitutional. Several Supreme Court cases, and I see you rolling your eyes, Representative Thomas. I have the cases here in front of me. I can give you citations. You versus you versus San Francisco County Democratic Central Committee, Tashijan versus Republican Committee of Connecticut. These are two United States Supreme Court cases. They're two Louisiana cases that follow those cases. One was ruled by the local federal court. This is how strong this law is. The Republican Party, the Democratic Party have First and 14th Amendment rights, freedom of association and freedom of speech protected under the First Amendment, Representative Thomas. They come to the state through the 14th Amendment. So this went to the federal court in front of Judge James Brady, and he said that the state has to have a compelling interest to put any kind of burden on the election of representatives to a private Republican Party or a private Democratic Party. They've had it on both sides of the aisle. This kind of thing happens occasionally in Louisiana, where the legislature, the state, you all remember, you are the state. The state does not have the right to interfere in the governance of these parties to the extent that the parties acquiesce to these laws. And I would tell you that 18444, basically the RPECs have agreed and abide by these things voluntarily, and they elect their own officials. But to the extent that the state wants to intervene into the internal governance of the party, it's completely illegal and completely unconstitutional, and it will be summarily dismissed. It was summarily dismissed in federal court in the case of the Republican Party of Louisiana versus Tom Shedler, who was the Secretary of State. This was back in 2011. The other case went in front of the Louisiana Supreme Court, and that was with Mike Foster as the governor, Louisiana Republican Party versus Mike Foster. So these things have been decided. It's absolutely the law. You can vote for it if you wish. The problem is you're going to ask the state to then defend this legislation, which is terribly flawed. Now, the other thing you're going to create...
I'll let you finish that sentence. Go ahead.
Is a built-in conflict of interest when you have incumbent legislators and other members of the party that get appointed to the PEC. Now the PEC, we have an endorsement committee, okay? So is the endorsement committee going to be free to say, look, we don't want to endorse Representative McMakin. We think he wants to meddle too much in local Republican politics, so he doesn't get an endorsement. How is that going to work when his other elected officials are also on the team? So I just have to say, you're setting up conflict in the party. It's illegal. It's unconstitutional.
We have a question for you,
Yes,
Representative Marcel.
Thank you. Sir, you said that you are a constitutional lawyer?
I don't.
I've
had some constitutional cases, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And how long have you been practicing law?
I've been practicing law 37 years.
37 years. And you are a Republican?
Yes, ma'am, I'm a Republican.
But you're not on the RPEC?
I'm not on the RPEC. I just, I actually, this was the thing that was amazing. I was first struck by the fact that this thing was also going to allow designees of these folks. Now, that was removed in the amendment.
So you've been sitting here all day to voice your disapproval of this bill.
I just, the waste of resources, the waste of time, the waste of a court battle, because I'm going to have to volunteer to do this.
And okay, that's what I'm getting ready to ask you next. So how much do you think this case might cost the state of Louisiana? What you're saying is, let me ask it a different way. If this bill should pass out of here, you are going to file suit immediately, I presume?
Well, I would wait and see how it played out. I'd let see if the Republican... So look, the Republican Party could just say, okay, we agree. We're going to let all these guys come on, and they're all going to be members of the RPEC.
But did they not just vote?
They just voted that they weren't going to do it.
Okay, so I thought so.
It would depend on how badly these folks really wanted to sit.
Okay. I just wanted to know. I was trying to figure out the cost.
Certainly it would raise litigation. It would cost a lot of money.
Right. I was just trying to figure out the cost. It would cost us fiduciary, doing my fiduciary
in my
duties.
experience, when you go against the state, the cost is inestimable.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a new terminology I'll have to add to my... all right, thank you. Appreciate your testimony.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
All right. We have Jerry... Bruyette, that's what I was going to say. That was... All right, Jerry, if you don't mind, introduce yourself for the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. My name is Jerry Bruyette. I am the Vice Chairman of the State Republican Party and an at-large member of the East Baton Rouge RPEC. The purpose of the RPEC, as well as the RSCC, is to grow the party and to help elect fellow Republicans to both statewide and local level offices. In doing so, we identify candidates, host voter registration drives, and take other steps to promote and grow the party. In East Baton Rouge, we have had significant success supporting the campaign and helped elect Mayor President Sid Edwards, the first Republican for this office in over 20 years. Additionally, almost all major parish-wide offices are held by registered Republicans, and the voter registration numbers in the parish show that in the last year, we have closed the gap with the registered Democrats by over 3,000 voters. Basically, you could say that the RPEC has been successfully fulfilling its duties of growing the party and electing Republicans. As a Republican, we have certain principles that we adhere to, and one foundational principle is that of limited government. As an adherent of limited government, I would ask fellow Republicans to not create and promote extraneous legislation that appears to give more power to government. There is nothing that currently exists in statute or otherwise that prevents any member of the state legislature or Bessie Board or PSC to run for a state or parish position within the party. If a member of the East Baton Rouge legislative delegation wants to be active in the RPEC, they can campaign and run for office just like I did. There will be elections for these seats in a couple of years, and they can run then. I will note that in my time serving on the RPEC, no legislature, nor Bessie member, nor PSC member has contacted me to inquire as to how they can assist the RPEC. I didn't see any of these individuals helping with any of the voter registration drives or out waving signs and campaigning for Mayor Sid. In fact, there's actually one Republican legislature in East Baton Rouge who actively campaigned last year for our Democrat candidate for mayor, actively opposing the eventual Republican who was elected. This bill, if it became law, would allow this Republican, who actively supported a Democrat over a Republican, to be on the parish executive committee. Currently in Louisiana, there are 2 parishes that do not have an active RPEC. More than half of our RPECs are not at full strength, and there are a sizable number of RPECs that have 3 or less members. A way to help the party and our RPECs would be a policy, not legislation, that would strongly encourage any elected Republican in a parish that does not have a full RPEC contingent to serve on that RPEC until a full contingent is achieved. If you truly want to help the party, do so in a constructive manner. In closing, I ask that if you believe in true conservative limited government, that you vote no on this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Varela. Get it? We have no questions. Thank you. Up next, we have Lynn Cox Graham, President, would like to speak. Come on, ma'am. Introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. I am Lynn Cox Graham. I am a member of the RSCC, Republican State Central Committee, and the RPEC, member at large for the entire parish. I have never run for office in my life before until a year ago, March, when I ran for both of those positions. I was thinking about Representative Boyd's statement about activism, and I have been, I guess, an activist for many years, dating back to when I was a child, helping Henson Moore answer the phone. So that dates me. I know. Okay. I ran very hard. I campaigned very hard. I used my own money to register to run. Also, all the campaign expenses all came out of my pocket, and I'm sure all of you know, or I certainly hope you do, there's no compensation of any kind for either of these jobs. It's strictly volunteerism. And I love it, but I wanted to make the parish better, the party better, grow the party, and just do the right thing is why I ran for those offices, despite it cost me to hold those offices. But this bill before us today would more than double the size of our RPAC. In fact, the more I hear, I think it would triple the size of our RPAC. And by adding people who weren't elected to serve in this capacity, y'all have been elected by the people to do your jobs, and your hands are full. Y'all have got a lot to do. You're very busy. But y'all have been elected by the people to do your jobs, and we have been elected to do our jobs. And we do it out of the goodness of our hearts, because we don't get any enforcement or anything for it except satisfaction for doing a good job. So, in the past 14 months since I was elected, I have never gotten a call that said thank you. I never got a call that said, and I'm not surprised at that, but anyway, just said, can I help you, or when's your next meeting, or I would love to come. Our meetings are open. They're never closed. Everyone is welcome to be there. And I welcome suggestions on how to improve our RPAC and our SCC. Those comments would be very welcome. But let me just close real quick. Putting all that aside, I'm just flabbergasted. This is directed at just one parish and just the Republican Party in East Baton Rouge Parish. I know Denise is proud they took the Democrats out, and I don't blame her. I wish they'd take the Republicans out.
Very much.
But thank you for your time and your consideration, and I am asking you to seriously consider voting no on this bill.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Up next is Christy Hike. Please say your name, introduce yourself, and you can speak. 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee. I appreciate the time to speak today. My name is Christy Hike, and I serve on the RSCC and the RPAC in East Baton Rouge, just like Lynn does, the lady who testified before me. And it's an honor to serve on those committees as an elected official. The Republican Parish Executive Committees in Louisiana serve as the local governing bodies for the Republican Party within each parish, and their primary functions are important to note. They are a grassroots organization. They support candidates. They have party leadership within the Republican Party. They have election oversight and community engagement. Including elected officials on Republican parish executive committees in Louisiana could be considered counterintuitive for several reasons. The first of those is it could be a conflict of interest. Elected officials are already in positions of public power, representing constituents, not just their party. Serving on an RPAC, which focuses on advancing Republican Party interests, could blur the line between their official duties and partisan activities, potentially undermining their impartiality. Number two, bias in party operations. RPACs are responsible for grassroots organizing, candidate recruitment, and endorsements. An elected official's presence could skew decisions toward personal or factional interests, favoring allies or suppressing challengers, rather than fostering open competition within the party. The third problem could be a redundancy of influence. Elected officials already wield significant influence within the party and community, and their inclusion on RPACs might concentrate power unnecessarily, sidelining grassroots voices and reducing the committee's role as a platform for broader party engagement. And lastly, the perception of partisanship. Public trust in elected officials could erode if they're seen as prioritizing party loyalty over governance. In a state like Louisiana, where political optics matter, this could alienate moderate or independent voters. In short, the government should not control private political organizations. By keeping elected officials off RPEC, the party maintains a clearer separation between governance and party activism, which ensures the committee focuses on building the Republican base rather than serving as an extension of established power. Please reject this bill and the governmental overreach it represents. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you very much. Thank you. No questions. Thank you. Up next, we have Jamie Sandifer. Please introduce yourself and you can begin speaking.
Hi, I am Jamie Sandifer. I'm the current chairman of the Livingston Republican Parish Executive Committee. I guess I am one of the activists I keep hearing people talk about. I don't really think of myself as an activist, but I guess I fit the discussion today. I've got all this written down, but just about everything that I had on here has been said by everybody else, so I'm going to go with a few other points. I found out about this bill, HB 200, on Monday afternoon and sent it to my membership for them to take a look at and ask for feedback. And the immediate feedback that I got was, we would like you to go to the Capitol and speak against this because my committee is opposed to this. Received nobody on the committee spoke in support of it. We do feel this is government overreach, basically meddling in EBR's business here. I do understand this pertains only to East Baton Rouge. However, the concern for us is that this opens up a very slippery slope where it's very easy for another legislature to file a bill and say, hey, I want the same rules for Livingston or for Tangi that East Baton Rouge has. We see that as a real risk, and we do not want any part of that in our committee, and I don't think most PECs do. If East Baton Rouge had asked for this or was on board with this, then I wouldn't be here today opposing this. But I think forcing this on another committee is just not the right approach. I would like to say there's not a PEC in every parish. Most parishes have one. And the one thing that every PEC member, whether Democratic or Republican, has in common is that we were all elected. And this bill changes that. And again, I don't think that's right either. If those officials that are named in HB 200 would like to serve on the PECs, they are more than welcome to sign up, run for election just like the rest of us. The issue of elected officials taking spots from activists is simply not a problem. We have a mixture of elected officials and laypersons, activists on our committee. It's a good mix. Plenty of opportunities for participation. In general, I'd like to see more elected officials than we have. Quite simply, most elected officials don't have the time to participate in PECs. Like, it does require a lot of time. So I don't think that's an issue, quite the opposite. I think that having too many elected officials or having elected officials forced upon the committee without election would actually stifle participation by activists like me. I would be inclined to take my ball and go home because I would feel like it was basically being taken over and the people like me were being pushed out. This is kind of the grassroots opportunity for the citizens to help be involved with their party, participate with their party, and make a difference. And I think we have a good system. I think we're doing good work. I don't know. As far as I can tell, not many people want this bill. I don't understand how it helps. I don't think it does. So I would respectfully ask that you all vote against this.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Up next, we have Aaron Sandifer.
Yeah? Oh, okay. Because we were talking about what I was going to say. Well, you just sit by me. Hold on, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I am Erin Sandifer. I serve on the Republican State Central Committee, and I am a parish councilwoman in my parish. I want to start by saying, isn't the Nazi Party a state-run party? And I want to start with a quote from a German Jewish psychologist and psychoanalyst that fled the Nazis. The lust for power is not rooted in strength, but in weakness. It is the expression of the inability of the individual self to stand alone and live. It is the desperate attempt to gain secondary strength where genuine strength is lacking. That's Eric Fromm. Now, I'm elected to serve on the parish council and the state central committee. If I wanted to be on RPAC, I would have run for it like everyone else had to. I already work hard to grow my party. And being on or off RPAC would make no difference. As an elected official, I attend my RPAC functions. I don't need to be a member to promote them or help them. I'm very involved. I have a full slate. I'm using myself as an example, even though I'm not in East Baton Rouge Parish. And this doesn't make sense to me. It is an egregious overreach for power. You will lose more trust of the people with such a move. This could carry over into other parishes and other parties. This is a Pandora's box. In the hall earlier, Representative Bayham told me to take this up in court. Is this a wise use of taxpayer money? When we're trying to earn, I'm an elected official too. I'm trying to earn their trust. So you're going to waste taxpayer money to fight this battle that you can throw out today. So I have a few questions. Representative McMakin, will you appoint yourself as the monthly speaker? What will your constituents think when you endorse yourself? Respectfully, I ask you to stay in your lane. The people of Louisiana need you to. United we stand, divided we fall. Thank you, and I'll give the rest of my time to...
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful. Wait, man. Did you fill out a card?
Yes, sir, I did.
And you are?
Catherine Diamond.
Catherine Diamond. I don't see a red card here for you.
I did fill one out.
Okay, you did not wish to speak on your card.
I do wish to speak.
Okay, all right. Now you wish to speak. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, go ahead, ma'am.
Okay. As I see it, a political party is made up of citizens that want to, select their leadership to go and be a part of the process to make laws and, to govern our society. And then you have the government, which has complete control over the individuals in their, over an individual in the society. And you always have to be very careful that the government doesn't, have all of this overreach to where they exploit the public and, dominate them in, very negative ways. Like she said, the Nazi Party, for instance. You cannot have a situation where the state is selecting the leadership of for the people in that way. The people are supposed to select the leadership. Whenever you're having laws where you're predetermining who the leadership of your political parties is going to be is extremely concerning, and that is against everything that our country is supposed to be about. It's very, very dangerous. I can't reiterate that enough. It just scares me to death.
All right, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
All right, I believe that is all of the red cards wishing to speak. So we have some other red cards that are, I'm not sure what your name is, ma'am, or if you turned in a red. Okay, all right, sorry. Yep, Ms. Bowler, we got one more card. Sorry about that. Thank you. Ms. Bowler, come on up. Sorry about that. It was in a stack with people who had already spoken, so.
I wasn't planning on batting cleanup.
All right, well, today's your lucky day. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Shirley Bowler, and I'm on the PAC, but I wasn't one of the ones that Woody mentioned. I guess he didn't find I had enough credentials to lay before you, but I was a member of this body at one time. And, I didn't come with the prepared remarks or quotes from famous people, but I would like you to take a look at the bill and to look at the current law and see where the problems lie. And the first problem is what's been brought up already by the constitutional lawyers in restricting this to the Republican Party and interfering in the private nature of the Republican Party. And the only other portion that I saw of 18444
was Caddo Parish had a provision that only applied to the Democratic Party, and I have to assume that the Democratic Party in Caddo Parish was okay with that. Well, I think you've heard enough today that the Republican Party right here in East Baton Rouge Parish is not okay with these changes, so I think that should merit some consideration on your part. The other thing I would like to point out is that the ex officio members that would be joining this group would be counted for the purpose of action and quorum. And if you look at the state bylaws for the State Central Committee, it does recognize, those bylaws do recognize as members of the committee by virtue of their office, but they do not give them voting rights or get counted as a quorum. And I think that's a significant difference between this statute and what the Republican Party has already chosen to do for itself. Another problem with the bill is that the terms of office aren't going to match. We were elected, I don't remember, but we serve a 4-year term on the Parish Executive Committee. It's not going to match the terms of office of all these other people that you're adding. Some are 6-year terms, some are 4-year terms, and it would be very hard to keep track of all these people for quorum purposes. And finally, when I was a member of this body, I didn't live in Baton Rouge. I lived in Jefferson Parish, and we had a pretty unique arrangement then. I don't even know if it still exists because I've been here for 18 years. We had a separate body that was created by the Parish Executive Committee to be an endorsement committee. Do we still have that in Jefferson Parish? Well, I would suggest to Representative McMakin, if I'm saying his name correctly, that he should work with the Parish Executive Committee to see if that is not an avenue that he would like us to pursue, because that might correct the problem that he's trying to address in how we go about endorsing people.
Thank you for your testimony.
Okay, let's go to lunch. No,
Yeah, maybe we're in time for lunch. Oh, there's one question real quick, Ms. Bowler. Is this for the witness? Ms. Bowler.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We do have a question, and we might be in time for lunch tomorrow, but Representative Wright?
Hey, Ms. Bull, over here. For what it's worth, I remember sitting in the backseat of a car with you, Charlie Lancaster, Quentin Dastug, and a couple others back in the day when you were over in Harahan. So I appreciate your service. I'm just going to throw this question out.
In the backseat of a car? Did you clarify that?
It was all good. It was all good. Yeah. Be careful with that. Sorry. I just remember all of you. All right. It was quite a crew. It just dawned on me, just kind of sitting here thinking about that. I mean, when you were in the House, did you have a legislative auditor? Did you work with a legislative auditor?
Did I have a what?
A legislative auditor. The legislative auditor.
Yes, we had a legislative auditor. Is that what you?
Yes. Did you get value from the reports and the work that was done?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just kind of wondering. I mean, we provide a number of things from the state, including we enable the ability for these PECs to get money. Like, has anybody ever took a look at all the PECs and what they're doing with the money? I mean, we're a pretty hardcore state on trying to find out what people are doing with money, right? I mean, I think all of us in this room in general, like, hey, forget Doge. He's killing it. I mean, they're doing a great job. But like, just even a little bit, we get the auditor to look at things. I'm just kind of curious if anybody has. Because I got a feeling the answer is no. And I'm just going to say this, like, I'm not pointing this out at anybody in particular, but like, we got a little bit of hypocrisy. Like, we're providing all this service, we're enabling the ability to get money, we're restricting it to just two parties, but then all of a sudden it's like, hey, leave us alone. Like, there's some conflict there, in my opinion, and I'm not saying you suggested that. You were the last person.
When I answered the question of did I have any experience with the legislative auditor, it was as a legislator, not as a member of the.
No, I got you.
Okay, I'm just
curious. I find it valuable when the legislative auditor. You just happen to be here when it was a chance to answer, so it's not about you in specific. I'm just saying, I'm looking at the legislative auditor and thinking about this. Like, that's a service that we appreciate as legislators, but then I don't recall it ever checking the PEC out. I mean, but we should, right? I mean, we should, in my opinion.
All right.
Well, that,
Is this a question for her, or you just?
yeah, no, it's actually a statement. There's a lot of
Has nothing
hypocrisy
to do
going
with-
on, and I think we need to rethink some of it.
Nothing to do with the backseat of a car.
Yeah, sorry.
Representative Boyd for a question.
I've just been informed
Once again,
that
I hate, excuse me, ma'am.
our PAC has an
Excuse me.
obligation to file a report with the legislative order to
Yeah.
every,
Excuse me, ma'am.
Go ahead.
and we do.
All right, Representative Boyd.
Once again, I hate that I have to put this mic to my mouth. However, the DPECs really are mostly self-funded. We hold fundraisers to raise money for our party. Part of the money that we pay toward qualifying does come back to us. It's not state-funded or city-funded. I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you, Representative Boyd. All right, there are no more questions. Thank you for your testimony. All right, some other red cards in opposition, not wishing to speak, can provide information if needed. W.T. Winfield with East Baton Rouge, Katie Bernhardt, former chairman of the Democrat Party. These are all opposition, by the way. Kathleen Harris, Larry Harris, I believe. Horns, okay. Carol Thomas, Carol Thomas with East Baton Rouge Republican Women, Bob Morgan, Louisiana Republican State Central Committee, Aaron Sandifer, I think she testified already, with Republican State Central Committee, Mary Susie Labrie, Bert Colley with West Baton Rouge RPEC, Dana Farley with Jefferson Parish Citizens. I'm not sure if that's a group or he's just a citizen. Mary Margaret Moach, maybe, and Lang. I'm not sure. Maybe or Larry David, maybe, or it's hard to. Larry Davis, okay, with Livingston Parish Republican Party. Okay, Representative Macon, I have a question for you that I didn't have written earlier, but I'm on one of the last testimony, and kind of on my first question that I asked Chairman Babcock on the quorum issue. So I didn't realize the State Central Committee had ex officio members on it that were elected officials as well, but they don't get to vote and don't count towards quorum. If this would move forward, I think the issue with quorum, I think, could become a problem for the PEC itself, and the way that the state party has their ex officio, maybe not from the voting standpoint, because I'm not sure. I don't think that's your intention, but at least from a quorum, I think you would have to definitely look at that should it move forward. But get your thoughts on that, or just your comment on it.
Yeah, I would say on that, the statute 18444 already talks about proxies, in the meetings. So if you don't make it, you can give your proxy to somebody else. And so if you have the quorum, I don't really see that being, personally, I don't see that being a problem, especially if the schedules are followed, if the meetings are announced on time, if you have them consistently, all that, especially because it's East Baton Rouge Parish. We're all here. I'm not talking about people having to come in or travel. So I really don't see that as being a problem. No, sir.
Okay, you've answered the question. All right. Been a long day. The board is clear. Representative Macon, would you like to close?
I just have a short close. It's pretty tough to take some hits when you're kind of questioned of your motives and what you're doing. And I view this really as just a positive opportunity for East Baton Rouge Parish of the unique situation we're in, my district especially, 3 statewide, 4 in our parish, and to Rep. Wright, 18464F. Each PEC shall file a financial statement annually with the legislative auditor. That's already the law. I will say, unfortunately, the East Baton Rouge Parish PEC has only done it once in the last 6 years, 2023. and they missed the rest of them. So I think, to your point, there is an opportunity to do that, and I hope in the future that all the PECs will do that. But my intention is I view it as a very positive one for an opportunity for our district, our parish. As the Capital Region Chair, I struggle with the opportunities we have to bring people to the table, and that's what this is for. You kind of heard it in the gentleman from Livingston. I almost thought he was going to say it, that he wished more elected people were at the table with him. I think he caught himself there. And so that's what it is. It's a positive opportunity for our parish, and I hope that East Baton Rouge Parish, to Rep. Thomas's point, I hope we're the future leaders of the PECs. And everyone looks at us. Right now, I think everyone's looking at Jefferson and how great y'all are doing things over there. And that's not just to lock up your vote today, but I think that's the truth and what I've heard from people. Rep. Lyons, yours is doing great too for the Dems. So whatever that might be, I just want you to know the intention is there, positive purpose. That's how I believe, and that's what I'm going for, and I'd ask for favorable passage. Thank you, members.
All right, so Representative McMakin has made a motion that we report House Bill 200 favorable as amended. Is there any objection? All right, Representative Shammerhorn has objected. Madam Secretary, y'all both said it at the same time. All right, we'll give it to Representative Billings, Representative Shammerhorn. I'm not worried about you. She'll beat me up. All right, Representative Billings has objected. Ms. Baker, please call the roll.
Chair Boyer?
Yes.
Yes. Representative Bayham? Yes. Representative Billings? No. Representative Boyd? No. Representative Carter? Representative Farnham?
Yes.
Yes. Representative Gadberry? No. Representative Larverdane? Vice Chair Lyons?
No.
No. Representative Marcel?
No.
No. Representative McMakin?
Yes.
Yes. Representative Newell?
No.
No. Representative Shammerhorn?
No.
No. Representative Thomas?
Yes.
Yes. Representative Wright?
Yes.
Yes. Representative Weipel? Yes. There are 7 yeas and 7 nays.
All right, the bill fails to advance, and will remain here in committee.